Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. It happens to be the most Mondayest Tuesday I've ever experienced, but still a Tuesday. Hope you all had a great holiday weekend. I'm finally starting to feel better, and so it's back to work time. You know, one of the things I've been asked about a lot lately is my storage unit. A lot of people have a lot to say about paying for storage when you're a reseller, which I agree, it's not fun, but it is a tax write-off. But then they have a lot of questions like, is my unit climate controlled? It's not. And the reason is, they only have 10 by 30 storage units outside at my facility. Everything else inside that's climate controlled is a 10 by 10, and that's just not going to get it done for me. As you can see, I love having a large store, and so it requires a lot of space. So that's why we're in this unit. Let's go ahead and pull some orders and we'll talk about it some more. First item going out is this vintage Old Spice from 1994. It is aftershave and it is pretty full. I paid $1. It sold for $24.95. I do worry about being in a non-climate controlled unit. I live in Virginia, right on the East Coast, so it is very humid here, but I do everything in my power to protect my inventory from the elements. We sold this Texas Rangers Pez for $4. It is a personal item. That's why you'll see a lot of the things in my store are kept in bags, especially things that are susceptible to dirt, dust, mildew, things like that. But I don't really have a problem with too much of it. I paid $0.25 for this little kitty, which I believe is part of the My Little Pony line, and it sold for $7.66. And now we have another Pez dispenser going out. See, things like these Pez, if I can keep them in the box to keep them kind of protected, keep dust and stuff off of them, I will. And you'll notice I keep things like my glassware towards the front of the unit because if it does get dusty, it's most likely going to be on the stuff at the front, and that's easily wiped off. Whereas things like books, I try to keep towards the back. This soccer Pez sold for $5.95. Now, would I recommend you go out and get a storage unit as a reseller? I wouldn't have one unless I absolutely had to, which in my case I do. We just don't have the space at home for me to do this kind of work. And so a storage unit's the first, cheapest, best option for me. This vintage Proline Rutgers University football hat, we found it at a yard sale for $1 and it sold for $27.97. Ideally, I would love to have a kind of retail warehouse type of space, not necessarily for open business for customers to come in and shop, but just to have that kind of air conditioned, temperature regulated type unit or space to work in, but I'm not paying $1,000 a month for that. This vintage shaving powder, I picked up at an estate sale for $0.25. It sold for $6.95. Probably wouldn't pick that up again, but I would pick this up anytime I find it. This is a new with tags vintage 1994 Marvin the Martian puppet. It's made by Applause, which is obviously a great plush brand, and it is in pristine condition. I got super excited when I found this thing at an estate sale for $1 and it sold for $24.95 very quickly. Working out of a storage unit like I do, it's not a lot of fun in the winter when it's freezing cold, and it's not very much fun in the summer when it's absolutely scorching outside. Like today, it's only 70 degrees, but it is super humid. So I've got my fan going and I've got a little personal fan on my desk to keep me cool. This hardback book is a 1904 Pinocchio, so it is technically antique. It's over 100 years old, which is mind-blowing. I found this at the bins, and you guys, for the bins, it is in amazing condition. It's got some really cool illustrations inside of it, a super cool find, and at the bins, I only paid 50 cents for it, which is a steal. It sold for $29.72 with an offer. The other thing about being in a storage unit is you have to feel safe. You have to feel like it's in a good area. Mine is right around the corner from my house, and I feel relatively safe here. The only people I interact with are other people who rent at the facility because it is gated. This vintage Delta Jack Daniels bottle sold for $12. I got it for $0.25 at an estate sale. And now we have a magnet going out. Let's see. Got to make sure I grab the right one because there are several in here that are kind of similar. We are looking for a Naval Academy magnet, which you guys know, I find Naval Academy cheap enough, I'm going to snag it up. And here it is. I found this at an estate sale. I actually made a video about it. They were originally $1 each, but they were 75% off that day, so I paid $0.25. It sold for $10. Another thing about working out of a storage unit is you have to make sure the facility is okay with you actually being there for quite a few hours of the day and working out of it. Some places only want you to store your stuff there, just be there long enough to drop off and pick up. But mine has a pretty good policy about letting people work there, which is definite plus. These Campbell's soup cross stitches came from the bins, paid $0.25. They sold for $10. I think having a good relationship with the people who run the facility is probably one of the biggest things. People here are very nice and they appreciate us as tenants. A lot of places are not like that. This vintage pager came from an estate sale just a few weeks ago. Paid $1, it sold for $29.95. And I got to give a shout out to my boyfriend because he saw that. I was too busy looking at books, go figure, and I may have missed it, which is kind of sad because those sell very well. Vintage pagers are definitely a nostalgic item that people love to grab on eBay. This Mission MIA book is a paperback. It came from the bins, paid $0.25. It only sold for $3.46 on my sale. I tried to not sell anything for less than $5, but that one kind of snuck through with my current discounts, but I'm happy to move it out, and it was going to Canada. Now these are 2 Tupperware butter huggers for corn on the cob. And so you put butter in that little compartment right in there and you kind of rub it along the side of corn cob. And then that holds salt, so you can salt your corn, which is pretty cool. I paid $0.25 for a piece at these at an estate sale and they sold for $11.90. This next item is kind of neat and it made me feel good when it sold because it's the first one of these that have sold and kind of justified my purchase. I told you I bought a bunch of keychains and patches at that last highway sale. I also got in that deal a bunch of backstage passes for concerts. This is Luther Vandross and Anita Baker from 1988. Paid $0.25 for it. It sold for $14.95. Now, I told you guys I had the Naval Academy magnet sale earlier. These are 3 West Point magnets, and I had them listed as multiple quantity listings, and the person bought all 3 that I had for sale. So I have 75 cents into them. They sold for $19.50. So I guess to wrap up the topic of storage units, this is what's right for me and my business. And I appreciate the tax write-off. I don't mind the expense. And, you just have to deal with the cons of it. But for me, it works. It's not the right move for everybody, and I don't necessarily recommend it to everybody. This Stephen King Lizzie's Story hardback book, I paid 50 cents for it at the bins, and it sold for $5.57. Now we have a patch going out, and this is a new old stock patch. You can see it was originally priced at $1.25. This came at that yard sale that we set up and we're selling at, but I bought from a neighbor. Bought a bunch of patches for $0.25 a piece. It sold for $8.46. Now we have a themed double order going out. This is actually going to a viewer, Miss Debbie. Thank you, as always. Appreciate your purchases. And we appreciate you watching. First item she picked up is this set of 3 Madame Alexander dolls. One is dressed like Minnie Mouse, the little boy in a little top hat, and then Peter Pan over there. I paid $0.25 a piece for these in an estate sale. The lot sold for $11.95. And then at that very same estate sale, which is kind of funny that you bought both these things and they came from the same sale, you grabbed this Hook storybook. It's really cool. It's like a little short version book of the movie Hook, which was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. I paid $0.25 for it. It sold for $8.95. So as always, Miss Debbie, thank you for your order and I hope you enjoy them. And I'm just going to prove to you guys, Hook is one of my favorite kids movies because I have it right here in my private DVD collection. Whenever I feel like watching a movie on this TV up here, it's one of the ones that I watch. All right, let's see what else we have to grab now. We are looking for another Pez dispenser, and this is actually a more rare one. You don't see this quite as often, maybe because I'm on the East Coast, but this is a Washington State football Pez. It sold for $5.91, and it's going to Switzerland. Now, this next item going out is something I was super excited when I found at an estate sale, and then turns out it didn't sell as fast as I thought it would. I thought it would fly off the shelf. It is vintage Rubbermaid shelf liner, like contact paper, and it's in this really cool avocado green color. New old stock from 1971. It finally sold. We paid $1 for it. It sold for $24.95. I guess when people are buying vintage contact paper, they really want the flowers and mushrooms and kitschy kind of design, but I love that green. Super cool item. Speaking of new old stock, we have this Scotch vintage packaging sealing tape. Never even knew it came in a package like that until I found it. Paid $0.25 at an estate sale. It sold for $10.46. Alright, just 2 more items going out from the first half of our weekend orders. We're going to have to split our Memorial Day weekend orders into 2 videos because we had quite a few. This is an adorable little fall harvest Halloween sleeping mouse sleeping on a haystack. I paid $1. It sold for $13. It's like literally cuddling a pea pod, which is adorable. And our last item for this video, but not for the weekend, is this Tiger Electronic Poppin' piano toy. Now, you're not going to be able to hear the sound because I don't have it powered on, but look, all the characters pop up and down when you play. A really cool item, and it works, makes sound. Found this at the bins, paid $1.50 for it. It sold for $20.97. So these are all the things you guys have seen me sell so far, but we're not going to do a total recap until we see the rest of the items from the weekend. So we'll see you guys soon with another video of what sold.